This is Literary Pharaoh bringing you another upload brought to you by me, your one and only Literary Pharaoh. So, I wanted to give you guys a video today about the social engineering that's going on that's causing spiritual death. And unfortunately, many of us are unaware that we are part of the experiment. Human beings are the rats in this experiment. Did you guys know that experiments conducted at the National Institute of Mental Health by behavioral researcher named John B. Calhoun? He began this experiment in 1947 with the Rockville rat colony. Experiment in which it was called Rockville rat colony experiment, in which a quarter-acre outdoor enclosure was built to house wild Norway rats. The rats were protected from predators and had access to fresh air and sunlight and were provided enough food, water, and nesting material for a population of 5,000. Similar to what they do to human beings today. We're given enough water, enough food, relatively protected from predators unless you immerse yourself in some sort of dangerous lifestyle. But for the most part, this rat experiment is sort of analogous to what's going on with human beings today. We're protected from predators, we have access to fresh air and sunlight, and we are provided with enough food, water, and nesting materials for a population that fits our numbers. Where in this case, in this rat experiment, it was 5,000. Up until the experiment, I want you guys to listen to this. Up until the experiment was ended in 1951, the colony maintained a population of around 200. The rats were all still behaving as natural, healthy rats, maintaining the same sort of violent equilibrium that they do in the wild. During the rat universe experiment of 1958 to 1962, where the enclosure was indoors and built much smaller. So now there's a different experiment. The first experiment was outdoors, fresh air, sunlight, lack of predators, nesting population for about 5,000. So now we're talking about a different experiment called Rat Universe. And this experiment was done in 1958 to 1962, where the enclosure was indoors and built much smaller. John Calhoun coined the term behavioral sink. Write that down, class. Behavioral sink. Behavioral sink. As the phenomenon that occurs when rats become overcrowded, they begin to socially withdraw, turn homosexual, and act more aggressive. That speaks to our society today. We have many similarities with rats and mice. I say that because many drugs that are experimented or used are experimented on rats and mice before they come to humans. So we have very similar organ functions. Not the same species, of course, but we have many similarities to where if something's going to be tested and be used on a human, they usually use rats and mice to test it. So I find this very interesting that in this experiment with the overcrowding of these rats, they became overcrowded. They begin to socially withdraw, which happens to many of us today. We like to withdraw and start to act out more aggressive, turn homosexual. From 1968 to 1972, they ran the Universe 25 experiment for mice. A 9 by 9 foot metal enclosure was constructed, built to hold about 3,800 mice with unlimited food, water, and nesting supplies. The enclosure was climate controlled, and none of the mice had to be concerned with predators or disease. Universe 25 started with 4 breeding pairs of mice on July 9th in 1968. And during the first year, the mice thrived. The population doubled in every 2 months until it peaked on day 560. And for the next 2 years, the population declined. During this year, or during the first 2 year, during this 2 year decline, the behavior of the mice changed. Alpha males who were initially dominant became passive and no longer defended their territory. Does that remind you of something that's happening today with our men? Okay. Other males became hyper aggressive and attacked without provocation, and many of the males fell into the category known as the beautiful ones. These males exclusively spent their time alone. Listen to this. They spent their time alone, avoiding all social and sexual behavior. They obsessed over grooming themselves and appeared to be the most physically healthy. Overall, the males lost interest in having sex with females, and the females lost interest of being mothers. They lost interest in being mothers. Don't we see that happening today? They began showing aggression toward their offspring, including killing and eating them, and their bodies began miscarrying. Even though the population dropped and the living space increased, the mice did not recover. Calhoun interpreted the reason for this collapse to be the result of a spiritual death, which then directly led to a physical death. I told you guys many times before that what happens physically is happens first spiritually. The physical is just the emanation of what's going on spiritually in the inside or in the emotion, what can't be seen, the invisible traits, but yet the invisible become visible in the physical. Calhoun wrote that the first death is that of the spirit. The spirit has died. They are no longer capable of executing the more complex behaviors compatible with species survival. Calhoun was saying that if you diminish a creature's spirit, it will lose its survival instincts. That's what's happening today in this world with human beings. We are part of a large experiment, but we just don't understand that we are. We don't think that we are because we're given the perception that we're free. And in this perceived sense of freedom, we tend to carry ourselves in this sort of utopic, quasi-utopic mindset, not knowing that we are part of a larger experiment, unbeknownst to us, of course. Calhoun was saying that if you diminish a creature's spirit, it would lose its survival instincts. He saw how this would affect life for humans and said that the establishment will have to change in order to avoid social breakdown in crowded human environments. I want you guys to listen to something that John B. Calhoun said. He said this, quote, "We need a better establishment to allow interrelationships, to protect us from too many contracts or contacts, but to allow us for those contact which we do engage in to be more meaningful for our own lives and more meaningful to others in a compassionate sense of each of us being involved in helping the other to fulfill his role. We have many more roles, and this is where the notion of compassion comes in and is helping each of us helping others to fulfill their program for development." Close quote. Studies have shown that people who live in these large cities are less happy and have less meaningful lives than those who live in small towns. You know, you always watch the movies. I'm moving to a big city. That's all a trap. Hollywood media has forced you guys' minds to move toward their frequency, and you guys think that moving to these big cities and big cities and towns is fulfilling. No, it's not. For many of us, it is no surprise to learn that living like pets in large crowded cities is unhealthy for humans. But for the establishment, it's big business. Studies in China and in the United States, it shows that residents living in more populated areas end up spending more money and consume more products. This is because most social interactions become comparative and competitive, more about having the same things as your neighbors and less about meaningful friendships. This is spot on, folks. This is exactly what we're in. You'll have to be an idiot to deny it. The 15-minute cities will grow, but so will small community, as many humans are learning to reject the establishment and take responsibility for their own lives. Thank you guys for listening. Leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think. Peace.